All right, and now the National Identity Management Commission has cleared FIC, as Financial Inclusion Center professionals, to participate in the World Bank-backed Identity for Development Ecosystem Enrollment Service in Nigeria. Let's find out how this is going to work and if it's different from what we've been experiencing before now. We have joining us from our Abuja studio to discuss this the Executive Director of Financial Inclusion Centers and also of the Financial Inclusion Center Professionals Network PLC, Mr. Shola Bickersteth. Thank you so much, Mr. Bickersteth, for joining us on the program. Good morning.
Good morning.
So is this different from what we've been having before, having the FIC professionals now involved in this project?
Oh, yes. The expectation is that there will be better efficiency in capturing the biometric identity of all Nigerians in the next few months, given the framework that the ID4D project has been put in place, supported by the World Bank.
Yeah, but efficiency comes with infrastructure and all of that. How empowered are the FICs, to take up this role?
FIC has been a leader in providing access to finance infrastructure across Nigeria. We've done this severally with state governments for the BVN enrollment across Nigeria, for the SIM-Reg registration. So we have years of experience to provide the kind of support that is required to ensure that every Nigerian from birth gets a digital ID in the next few months.
Yeah, I was talking of the infrastructure. I know you're going to need computers, you're going to need internet. Sometimes you go for some of these things, you said, oh, there's no network, you have to hold on, you have to come back. So how empowered are you in that area?
Yes, that's what I was referring to. In terms of connectivity, what we use are field devices. They are like big POS devices, if you like, that can be taken to field. And even in the middle of a remote area, they're able to have internet connectivity and they're able to drive data back to the central NIMC database. So that device, which is very handy, is what is going to be deployed to every nook and cranny of Nigeria. It's not a new development. It's just an improvement on what we have actually been doing over the past 4 years. In the past 4 years, we've successfully acquired data of 108 million Nigerians. So this is more or less like phase 3, if you like, where we're going to acquire the remaining, but in a much more efficient manner.
Well, I'm happy you mentioned that number, Mr. Bickersteth, because there's been a lot of argument for financial inclusion. I wanted to say, how impactful has your network been in these years of existence? Oh,
well, I think one of the obvious outcomes of our efforts are people that we now call POS agents across Nigeria. 10 years ago, actually 12 years ago in 2012, when we approached the Central Bank of Nigeria, that the existing ATM networks was not going to serve, especially the rural areas. And we proposed what is now called POS agents. It eventually was adopted, and the agency banking guideline was developed by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So today, there are 2.1 million POS devices that are being used for access to cash in Nigeria. And there are like about 1 million, we don't have the actual figure yet, POS agents all over the country that are more or less making Nigeria's economy liquid. So that is one of the obvious outcomes of our efforts to build financial inclusion infrastructure for Nigeria.
You know, a wider conversation on the role of POS in Nigeria gives a bittersweet perspective. For instance, our ATMs mostly now are empty, but the POS operators always have cash. And there's the argument or allegation of collaboration between POS agents and the banks to dry up the ATM so that consumers will always go to the POS operators.
Well, it's exactly what it is. It's conspiracy theory. Everybody goes to POS not because the cash doesn't exist in the ATM. It is actually the opposite that happens. What happened is a natural direction towards what is working. People find it easier to walk into a marketplace and look for a POS around because the distribution of ATMs is not as much. So what happened is a situation where banks put a lot of cash in their ATMs and nobody is going there anymore. So what do you do where the ATMs are not being as used as they used to be? Having said that, a lot of those that we call POS agents today are working with fintechs who are not banks. They don't have banking halls where their agents can walk in and request for cash. So it left a bit of a gap that you might say some individuals are taking advantage of in order to help those POS agents of fintech organizations to gain access to cash. But it's not like there's some sort of collaboration. It's just an opportunity that is being taken care of. But CBN has taken care of that. They've given official warning to the banks to make sure that cash is available in their POS machines. And of course, the agents that need it get the cash that they need to make it available to members of the public.
You know, I do beg to disagree that there's money in ATM and people don't go there. I'm a consumer in Nigeria, and especially when you go to the POS operators and they charge you so much, you know, to get a small sum of money. It does seem like we're even buying naira in our own country. And yes, the CBN has given orders and warnings, but I don't know what's happening in between. But the ATMs are still empty, and yet the POS operators are still full of cash and ready to serve at a cost that sometimes doesn't seem reasonable. So I'd like for you to speak to that. Why does it seem like we are buying naira in our country? Why does it cost so much, you know, for us to get cash from POS operators?
Well, that's one way of looking at the situation. If we go back, let's say 10 years ago when there were no POS agents all over the place, I remember in those days you would enter into your vehicle and you would drive around town looking for ATMs that work. And in some rural areas, you actually have to travel like an hour to get to the nearest ATM machine. What you are forgetting to add to the equation is that cost and time of travel. If it's going to cost you 1,000 naira to, to transport yourself to an ATM machine, and then you have to shut down your business or whatever you're doing to go and get that cash. And hey, here is this person next to you. You're not going to pay any extra cost of transportation, but you can walk there and get that cash. So rather than looking at the charge that that POS operator is making or is charging as the cost of accessing cash, you have to look at the complete picture, which is that it is actually costing you less to get that cash, because by the time you add transport and time, you will have spent much more. So look at it as a service and less of you're buying cash. And that's one simple way. That doesn't mean that POS operators should not be properly regulated. That is what we advocate, that POS operators need to be better regulated than they presently are.
What would a proper regulation look like from your perspective?
Capacity capacity building is very, very important. We have a situation as at today where more or less POS business has been turned to Okada riding. Everybody and anybody can come in. Of course, you don't need to be a university graduate to get into POS business, but there's some basic training, even for your own good. When issues of fraud come up, it is usually because you have an untrained POS operator who has not been taught how to protect themselves, how to verify customers, how to manage cash, and how to keep records and all those kind of things that are required for sustaining the system and for, of course, enabling quality of service to the members of the public. So basic training, minimum basic training for all POS operators is a starting point.
I guess that's what the CAC was bringing up the other time, and it did settle down well. I wonder how that matter, even if it has ended, but it seems to have died down, at least for now.
No, the CAC angle is a different dimension. And once again, it's for everybody to understand the rationale behind it. As of today, a lot of crime has moved towards POS locations for obvious reasons. They are all over the place. There are 2.1 million devices all over the place. So crime has moved towards that direction in itself. Now, for us to be able to deal with the outcome of that migration towards that, when an individual approaches another individual and says, I want to do a cash withdrawal, and it happens to be a criminal situation, now when that matter is reported, it becomes a personal matter. So that individual is going to be arrested for being part of a crime. But if you are a registered business as a POS operator, then at least the criminal angle, you are better protected. And that's why POS operators are advised, don't do this in your personal name. Do it as a registered business so that when problem comes, you are at least exonerated or better protected from being treated individually as a criminal. It hasn't stopped. And of course, those who have taken time to register their businesses for their POS operators, they will soon start seeing the value, apart from the immediate benefit of not being, treated as criminals when situations arise between them and members of the public.
I know there was a task force that was created from within the operators, and then we did see them go around to maybe raid and at least try to check some operators. I wonder if that task force is still active and if they've been able to record any gains so far.
Oh, well, the task force effort is appreciated by the Association of Mobile Money Operators. But the central bank has put in place something even better, which is a database of all POS agents across Nigeria. There is an organization called Shared Agent Network Facility, which is SANEF, who are mandated to more or less issue out a registration ID for all POS agents across Nigeria. And by getting an ID, which is like a plate number, very soon you'll be able to even visually verify who is an authorized POS agent or otherwise. So the physical task force effort is good, but digital enforcement is going to come into place very soon, led by the central bank and SANEF.
Yeah, we do hope that, members of the public would be alerted on, what to look out for, who are those they should deal with and not. But with all of this data and regularization going on, can we expect more from, the financial inclusion agent, I'll prefer to call you that, when it comes to helping to curb fraud and illegal activities, ransom from kidnapping and all of that? Can we expect more?
Oh, sure. Sure. I've just given a background that once we start issuing a digital identity to all verifiable POS operators, and of course, once we also get to the space where all POS operators receive basic training, and by the way, the basic training is available for free by SANEF. Those who want to go a little higher can also get training from the Chartered Institute of Bankers on agency banking as at today, because the industry is not a flat one, so there are different layers of operators that will be put in place. But once those basic things are in place, basic training, basic certification, basic identification, then it will be possible to serve members of the public a lot better. What we need to keep in mind is that financial inclusion is not a straight line. Financial inclusion is like your WAEC results. There's English, maths, biology, and all of that. So when we talk about financial inclusion, we talk about payments, which everybody can see. And 65% of Nigerians as of today have a basic bank account, which has grown rapidly because of the POS agents that are all over the place. So that's a main plus. But however, only 3% of businesses in Nigeria have access to credit, which is fundamental to economic development. So we're now moving into a phase where we're going to be having a new category of POS agents. We call them financial inclusion experts. But there are parties that you can approach, and if you're a small business, you can go to request if you can access a loan, if you can access to lease equipment, and get liquidity for your business. And there will be as plenty as POS operators as we have them all over the place in Nigeria in the coming months. And that will help us to deepen financial inclusion. We're also talking about pension, we're talking about mortgage, and we're talking about e-commerce as well. And so this specialized new category of POS agents who will be certified by the necessary institutes, the Chartered Institute of Bankers, the National Institute of Credit Administrators, Nigeria Interbank Settlement Scheme, NIMC, Data Protection Council of Nigeria. All these people, they will train these individuals so that a lot more small businesses in Nigeria can start accessing loans, grants, credit, leasing facilities that can help them to grow their businesses and Nigeria's economy.
All right. We look forward to those days when they'll be more trained, more professional, and offer more services and charge us less for giving us cash. I can't forget that. Mr. Shola Vikestate is the Executive Director of Financial Inclusion Centers, and that's the FIC Professionals Network PLC. Thank you so much for your time and perspective this morning.
Thank you for having me.